This is a club that hardly anyone uses, but I think there's a strong case for every ability of golfer from single figures all the way up to high handicappers should put this in their bag in place of something that's in there already, because I'm confident if they did, they would hit more greens in regulation on par threes, better scoring out of the rough, and they might even get up and down a few more times from tricky situations around the greens. But what is this mystery club? Well, it's time to find out. So what is this mystery club I hear you shouting at the screens? Well, it's actually a 4 hybrid. I think this is a club that a lot of golfers maybe would let their ego get the better of them and often transition from a 3 hybrid into a 4 iron. But actually, I think there's a strong case for more golfers of nearly every ability, to make that switch point a little bit higher through the set and go from a 3 hybrid into a 4 hybrid and then maybe into a 5 iron. I'm going to talk on exactly why I think that's the case in this video. So I've got 2 equivalents here in terms of that slot in the bag. I've got the new Titleist GT2 4 hybrid, which comes in at 21 degrees as standard, and I've got the Mizuno Pro 243 4 iron, which is a pretty standard 4 iron, comes in at 22 degrees as standard. But you'll see they're 2 very different looking clubs, and they are set up very differently as well. The first thing you'll notice when you put them side by side is the difference in the length. So with a hybrid, generally speaking, you're going to have a little bit more length on the shaft versus an iron. This comes in around as stock, sort of 1 1/4 inch longer than the iron. So in terms of comparing the two, what's that going to give you? Possibly a little bit more club head speed, maybe a little bit more volatility in terms of the quality of the strike, because the club head is further away from your hands. But generally speaking, you should get a little bit more speed out of swinging a hybrid versus a shorter 4 iron equivalent. And what's great about the Titleist GT2 hybrid in particular is that you can adjust the settings on this to fine tune your ball flight. So you've got adjustable hosel here. You can adjust the loft by up 1 degree or 2 degree and down 1 degree. You can also change the lie angle settings to more upright or more flat. So what I'm able to do with this one is loft it up by 1 degree to 22 degrees and get that to exactly match the loft of this 4 iron at 22 degrees to see exactly how they compare. What's great about the GT2 hybrid in particular as well is that you've got adjustable sole weights here. Not many hybrids offer that on the market, and that gives you the ability to really fine-tune the ball flight. And there are some custom weights available as well through a fitting. There are like 6 different settings you can choose from, so you can really dial in the ball flight to the nth degree. If you're looking for a particular trajectory on your hybrid shots, or you hit them from certain situations on the course, you can really dial that in. So clearly a lot more versatility in terms of how you can set the hybrid up. In terms of how they look down behind the ball, clearly 2 very different looking profiles. The GT2 4 hybrid, much bigger behind the ball, loads of loft on show. I love the full face grooves on here, give you a steer on where your alignment is. But clearly a lot more real estate behind the ball versus a 4 iron. You know, obviously it looks a lot more compact, pretty thin top line this one. This is a pretty standard, better player 4 iron, so a little bit more intimidating than the hybrid. But there are some golfers who just like the look of an iron behind the ball versus a hybrid. I was that golfer and possibly still am, but you know, as my ball striking skills are dwindling, I'm definitely sort of coming around to the idea of putting a hybrid in play versus a 4 iron. I'm going to touch on sort of some of the other areas of performance that golfers really look for in this video. But before we sort of get into the data and how they actually compare, let's just hit a few or a couple of shots with each, or maybe 1 shot with each, to see exactly how they compare. Maybe we'll start with the 4 iron first. So remember, these are exactly the same loft, slightly different shaft settings, but hopefully we can sort of see the difference in the trajectory. We've got a flag down here on the beautiful 2nd hole on the links course at La Hacienda Golf Links in Spain. It's about 200 yards away, which is typically where I would sort of have a 4 iron finishing, maybe slightly short of that, but let's just see where this goes. See, I hit that a little bit toey, and the ball flight was pretty straight, just turned over a little bit. Looks like it's just come up short on the front of the green. So that's something I think you're probably going to see with a 4 iron, is a little bit more sort of volatility on the carry distance. When you don't quite strike it, you might see a bigger drop off in distance, but also there's a pretty flat trajectory there with a 4 iron. Let's see how the 4 hybrid compares with a similar or the same loft setting, a little bit longer shaft. Well, hopefully you can pick that up. The trajectory is chalk and cheese. That is about 6 to 8 yards higher in trajectory. And I think there are a lot of situations where that's going to be beneficial for you. If you're hitting into long par threes, the greens are firm. If you don't quite strike it properly, that little bit of height It's going to mean you lose less carry distance. But let's dive into some of the data. Just give these a proper test on a launch monitor to see exactly how they compare and what the key differences are. Right, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how these clubs perform on the course, I just want to present to you the data that I got when testing these two clubs on a launch monitor here at La Hacienda Golf Links. We were using range balls and we were using a FlightScope Mevo launch monitor, so maybe take some of the numbers with a pinch of salt, but there are some clear trends that stand out from the data that we got. The first one is the ball speed output with the hybrid of the equivalent loft versus a 4-iron is a lot higher. It was a significantly higher ball speed I was getting from that 4 hybrid. And then the other one was the height I was getting from the trajectory was clearly significantly higher, around about 15 feet higher with the hybrid versus the 4-iron. And the other thing I would definitely note from the numbers was that there was a lot less volatility from the hybrid versus the 4-iron. When I didn't strike the 4-iron, the carry really dropped off a lot. When I didn't quite catch the hybrid as I'd like, I didn't see those big drop-off in ball speeds or carry distances, which is going to help a lot of golfers out. You think when you're hitting an iron shot into a green or an approach shot into a green, the thing you really want to get right is the carry distance. And if you're not deviating too much from where you think you'll be carrying your shots, that's going to really serve you well and help you to score better out in the course. And clearly, a 4 hybrid is delivering that consistency, whereas the 4-iron, if your ball striking's off, there's going to be a lot of volatility in your carry distances. Just going to take a short break from this video to remind that if you're enjoying it, do click the like button and subscribe to the Golf Monitor YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our other video content. And if you'd like to look at this particular hybrid and you want to get your hands on one, I'll put some handy links in the description below where you can get one for the best price in your area. So I think this is the situation where a 4 hybrid is really going to come into its own out of the rough. We see we've got a ball sort of semi-sitting down in the rough. You can, with the short iron, often get flyers that fly too far. You get into the mid irons, you sort of average itself out. But when you get into the long irons, it's really easy to hit that shot from the rough that just comes out dead, no spin, just drops out of the sky. And it can be really difficult to get that precise strike out of the rough. Whereas with a 4 hybrid, it's a completely different story. So let's demonstrate one for you now. I've got 2 golf balls here on the ground, pretty similar lies. I'm going to hit with the 4-iron first. I'm going to try and hit these pretty hard and see if I can strike them as cleanly as I can. This is the sort of thick Bermuda rough here, so it's going to be tricky to get them out, but let's see how well they come out. So you see how that sort of came out quite flat. It's gone a little bit left. I struck it okay. Be interesting to see where it's finished. It's just got on that mound on the left-hand side. So that's the iron shot, not overly clean. Similar lie, let's try the 4 hybrid now, and hopefully we can see if, well, there's a slight difference in the quality of contact you can get from the rough, but also just the technology in the head and the design of the head, just getting able to pop the ball out so much more easily. We see majors like US Opens, USPGAs, where the rough is long and thick. A lot of tour players switch out their long irons for 7 woods and 9 woods. It's a similar sort of concept, that sort of wide sole, added loft on a metal wood, really helps just pop the ball out without losing too much distance. That's a classic example there. So much more cleanly out of the lie there. And I can see it's carried a good 5 yards further and finished 5 or 6 yards further than where the 4-iron finished. So clearly, you know, if you're missing a lot of fairways and you find yourself in the rough a lot, a 4 hybrid is really going to help you out on these tricky situations if the ball's slightly sat down versus a 4-iron equivalent. Right, so let's hit a few more shots here from just a pretty standard lie here to this flag 200 yards away, because I think there's a few areas to cover. The first being the feel off the face, but also the turf interaction you get when you're striking off a tight lie like this. And thirdly, I think that arguably the most important thing that people would be worried about if you switch from a 4-iron into a 4 hybrid is that ball flight getting too high when you're hitting into the wind. You don't want to see that ball ballooning up and losing significant carry distance. But my hunch would be the added ball speed output you get from a hybrid would offset the drop in distance from hitting into the wind. And this is a perfect example. We've got a shot here, it's 200 yards away. We are hitting into a slight wind. So it'd be interesting to see exactly how these shots compare. I've got 2 balls with the hybrid, 2 balls with the 4-iron equivalent. Let's hit a couple of shots and see where they finish down on this hole. So I'm going to start with the hybrid, and we can hopefully you can pick up sort of the difference in the sound and feel of this club. So I've hit that really nicely, and I think there's a little bit low on the face, and that's probably something you're going to get with a hybrid, a little bit more margin for error. If you do sort of catch the ball a little bit low on the face, you're not going to be penalised as much with a hybrid versus a 4-iron. Let's see if we can hit this one properly. Well, I've struck that really nicely. A lot higher, that one. I'm pretty happy with that. That felt really solid. So that's the shots with the hybrid. So let's just move back into the 4-iron. I do think with a long iron like this, you do have to be a bit more precise with your ball striking. If you do catch the ground a little bit heavy, you're not going to get away with it as much as you do with a 4 hybrid with that wider sole. You know, definitely places a bit more of a premium on good ball striking. So I've hit that pretty nicely, just turning over a little bit. Be really interesting to see exactly where that finishes versus the hybrid. But obviously, you know, with a hybrid, you're getting that extra carry distance. So if you've got, you know, a long iron shot and you've got a bunker to carry, you could argue the hybrid is just going to give you a few more options, and you're not going to be worrying about whether you're going to cover that bunker or not, because you're just getting so much more speed and forgiveness out of it. Hit that pretty nicely as well. So yeah, clearly a lower trajectory with the 4-iron, slightly more steeper turf interaction with the iron shot versus the hybrid, more divots, got to be a little bit more precise. Let's go down there and see where those balls finish and whether you're actually sacrificing total distance when hitting into a breeze. Right, so we're up by the green here, seeing where those 4 shots finished, 2 with each club. And you can see here, short of the green, this was the shot with the 4-iron that I didn't quite hit as well as the other one, and that's come up notably short than the hybrid shots I hit. The first one being this one. This got pretty much pin high with the hybrid that I hit. And then over here we have the other 2 shots. Now, this shot here was the one I hit a lot better with the 4-iron, but you can see even that one is still slightly shorter than where the 2 hybrid shots finished. Both of these finishing pretty much just short of pin high. So clearly the fact that we're hitting into the wind has been offset by the extra ball speed and forgiveness and robustness we're getting from the strike of the hybrid. If you know you're playing in windy conditions, you have the ability to loft it down or 2 to really flatten that trajectory out a little bit more if you're concerned about that. So clearly the conditions not having too much effect on the performance of the hybrid versus the 4-iron. Okay, so I know you're probably already really bored of me selling the benefits of a 4 hybrid, but I've got one more for you, and it's in this particular situation around the green where I think a lot of golfers struggle, especially when they're chipping with a wedge, to get the precise contact from this sort of tight lie and get the ball close to the pin, whereas a 4 hybrid like this is a really good option for golfers who struggle with this particular shot, because that wide sole that you've got is really going to bounce against the grass. There's absolutely no digging whatsoever when you're striking this particular club from this lie. And the other thing I like about using a 4 hybrid like this is that because there's a lot of spring-like effect and power off the face, you haven't got to make a very long swing at all. You can make a very short, controlled swing, and with a bit of practice, get the ball nestling up to the hole from this particular shot. I've just not, well, that's actually rolled up pretty well to about 4 feet, so I'm pretty happy with that one. So it's just a really good option. Even if you don't quite strike it, it doesn't really matter, because you've got so much forgiveness and stability from the face. You just pop it up there like that, let it release down. It's such a good, useful option to have versus a wedge or a long iron if you're chipping from this particular situation. The margin for error is so sky high with this particular club. It's definitely well worth considering if you find yourself in a situation like this around the greens. It might help you get up and down a couple more times around. So there you have it, the 4 hybrid. I think this is the club that a lot of golfers should absolutely be considering for a place in their bag and ditching one of these, the 4-iron, because as we've shown in this test, this is just going to give you so much more user-friendly performance in so many different situations out on the golf course. You're not going to see that bunching that you often get at the top end of your bag where your 4-iron and your 5-iron go similar distances, but more importantly, you're not going to see those big drop-offs in carry distance when you're not striking the ball properly. And let's face it, the 4-iron is pretty difficult to hit, whereas a 4 hybrid is going to give you that stability and consistency of carry distance that every golfer is really going to need when hitting into greens in different situations. And we've seen how well it performs out the rough, we've seen how well it performs out the green. It could become a go-to club for you, so definitely some food for thought there. But that's all from me here from La Hacienda Golf Links in the south of Spain. I'll see you next time.